These stories are told as if they really happened. No monsters, no ghosts, just the kind of moments that stay in your head long after they're over. I grew up in a small town with one patch of forest everyone just called Miller Woods. It wasn't big, but it had a loop trail people would walk in the evenings. When I moved back home for a few months after college, I got into the habit of walking that loop at dusk. I knew the trail well. It was close enough to town that you could still hear distant traffic, but quiet enough that it felt like you were alone. I liked that. Most nights I wouldn't see anyone after the first 10 minutes. One evening in late October, I went out a little later than usual. The sun was already low. The air felt colder than it should have. I was maybe 10 minutes into the walk when I noticed a light through the trees off to my right. It looked like a small white flashlight. At first, I thought it was just another hiker on a side path. But after a minute, I realized something. No matter how far I walked, the light stayed the same distance from me. If I slowed down, it seemed to slow down. When I stopped, it stopped. It was subtle, but it was there. I finally called out, "Hey, you good over there?" No answer. The light stayed still. The sun dropped fast after that. The woods went from dim to almost dark in a few minutes. I had a small headlamp with me, so I switched it on and decided to cut the loop short by taking a smaller connector trail I knew. It led out to a side road that came back into town. As I turned onto that side trail, I glanced back. The other light was gone. I told myself it was nothing, probably some kid messing around or someone using their phone. The side trail was narrower and more overgrown. Branches brushed my shoulders as I walked. About halfway down, I caught the faint smell of cigarette smoke. It was strong, like someone had just exhaled near me. I stopped and turned my headlamp in a slow circle. Trees, brush, nothing. Then my beam passed over a small, bright orange dot a few yards off the trail, the lit end of a cigarette. But it was low to the ground, like whoever was holding it was crouched or sitting. I froze. The cigarette didn't move. No one said anything. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Hello?" Silence. The cigarette stayed there, burning. I didn't run, but I walked as fast as I could without tripping. The smell of smoke followed for a while, then faded as the trees thinned. The trail came out onto an old service road with gravel and weeds. This road was usually empty. That night, there was a dark SUV parked half in the trees, half on the shoulder, right where the trail met the road. The engine was running. No headlights. Driver's side door cracked open. My first thought was that it was some hunter or something, but then my headlamp caught the inside of the back. The seats were folded down. There was a blue tarp, some rope, and what looked like a shovel handle, all stacked neat. Too neat. I walked past without looking inside. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. As I got a few steps beyond the SUV, I heard the crunch of gravel behind me. A single, heavy step. I turned my head slightly without stopping. In my peripheral vision, I saw a shape standing between the open door and the trees. Just a man-sized outline. He didn't say anything. He didn't move toward me. He just watched. A pair of headlights appeared down the road from town. As the car got closer, the shape backed into the trees and disappeared.
I kept walking until I hit the main road and houses started to appear. When I got home, I told my dad. He called the sheriff's office. A deputy actually drove out to check. He called back an hour later. "Nothing there now," he said. "Just some fresh tire tracks. People dump stuff back there sometimes. Still, I'd avoid walking alone at dusk. We've had a few reports." He didn't say reports of what. I didn't ask. I never walked Miller Woods alone again. And sometimes, in other places, when I catch the smell of cigarette smoke in the middle of nowhere, I remember that orange dot hanging low in the dark, waiting for me to pass.
A couple years ago, I moved into an old apartment building in the city. It was cheap, and that was the only good thing about it. Thin walls, creaky floors, doors that didn't quite line up with their frames. The first month there, I kept noticing small things that felt off. I would come home from work, and my kitchen chair would be pulled out a little. The bathroom light would be on when I was sure I'd turned it off. My phone charger would be unplugged. I told myself I was just distracted. New job, new place. I wasn't sleeping much. One night around 3 a.m., I woke up to a soft, metallic sound from the front door, like someone testing the doorknob very gently. I lay there and listened. There was a tiny click, like the lock being tried, then nothing. I told myself it was one of my neighbors. The doors all looked similar. Easy mistake. The next day, I bought a cheap little doorstop alarm on Amazon. You wedge it under the door, and if anyone opens it, it screams. I started using it every night. For a while, that helped me sleep. Then the noises started. A couple weeks later, I woke up again in the middle of the night, this time to a small, distinct sound from the living room, a light switch click. But when I sat up, the apartment was dark. I held my breath. I thought I heard very soft movement, fabric brushing against something, then nothing. In the morning, the first thing I noticed was my couch pillow on the floor. I didn't remember leaving it there. The window lock in the living room was also flipped open. I never opened that window. I went to the landlord's office downstairs and told him I thought someone had been in my unit. He shrugged it off, said the windows warped in the heat sometimes, said the building was old and made noises. So I bought a small USB security camera and set it up in my living room facing the front door. It was motion activated and saved clips to a micro SD card. I felt paranoid doing it, but I also felt stupid not doing it. About a week later, I remembered to check it. There were just a few clips of me leaving and coming home. Then I saw one from 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. The clip started with my door. The deadbolt I always locked turned slowly on its own. Then the door eased open. No sound, no forcing, just a key. A tall, thin man stepped in. He wore a dark hoodie with the hood up and a baseball cap under it. His face was shadowed, but you could see some stubble. No mask, no attempt to hide his identity. He closed the door gently behind him and stood there listening. Then he walked straight to the kitchen, opened my fridge, and stood there for a long time, letting the light spill into the room. He took out a can of soda, drank half of it, and put the rest back. Then he walked down the hallway toward my bedroom.
The camera couldn't see into my room, but it caught him in the doorway, standing there, his head tilted slightly, like he was looking at something. That something was me, sleeping 5 feet away. He stayed there for almost 2 full minutes, no movement, just watching. Then he turned, walked back to the door, and let himself out as quietly as he'd come. There were 3 more clips like that on 3 different nights. When I showed the footage to my landlord, he went pale. He said, "That looks like Mark." I asked who Mark was. He said, "He used to be the super here, had master keys. He left a few months ago, turned everything in." Clearly, he hadn't. I took the video to the police. They took a report and copies of the clips. They told me to push the landlord to change the locks and to stay with a friend if I could. The landlord promised to change the lock the next day. He didn't. He said he had to wait for approval from the management company. That night, I stacked a chair against the door and set the doorstop alarm. Around 1:30 a.m., the alarm went off, a shrill, stabbing noise in the dark. I jumped up, grabbed my phone, and shouted that I was calling the police. By the time I got the lights on, the hallway outside was empty, just the sound of a door at the far end closing softly. The alarm had been pushed aside, like someone had opened the door an inch, realized there was resistance, and let it go. The locks were finally changed the following afternoon. I also paid out of pocket for an extra deadbolt, one only I had the key to. For a while, it was quiet. Then one day I came home from work and something felt wrong again. Nothing out of place, door locked, but my camera app showed a notification. Camera offline, power disconnected. It had been unplugged for exactly 4 hours in the middle of the day. I checked the last clip before it went dark. The door opened. The same man stepped in, now in a different hoodie. He looked straight at the camera this time. No hat. I could see his eyes clearly. He stared into the lens for a few seconds. Then he turned, walked forward, and reached down. The last frame was his hand grabbing the plug. I moved out within the month. The police never called to say they had arrested him. Sometimes in my new place, I wake up at night sure I heard a key turning in the lock. I get up, check the door, and it's always fine. But I can't shake the thought that somewhere out there, he still has at least one key that opens a door to someone's home.
When I was 22, I worked the overnight shift at a gas station off a state highway, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. It was a small place, 2 pumps, a convenience store, and a car wash that barely worked. Most nights were boring. A few truckers, some drunk people on weekends. That was it. My boss liked to save money, so after midnight, it was just me. The first time I noticed the tan sedan, it was around 2 a.m. on a Wednesday. It pulled into the far corner of the lot, under a broken light, and just sat there with the engine off. No one got out, no one came inside. After about 20 minutes, it backed out and drove away. I remember it because the headlights were dim and there was a dent in the rear bumper. A few nights later, the same car came back. Same spot, no movement, just a dark shape behind the windshield. This time it stayed for almost 40 minutes. I tried to tell myself it was someone on their phone or sleeping. People do weird things on long drives.
About a week after that, a guy walked in around 3 a.m. Middle-aged, gray hoodie, faded jeans, baseball cap pulled low. He looked average. That's what I remember most. Just the kind of face you'd forget. He bought a coffee and a pack of gum. While I rang him up, he looked around the empty store. "You here by yourself?" he asked. I lied and said, "No, my coworker's in the back." He smirked a little at that. "Must be a boring job," he said. Then he left. I watched him walk out to the lot. He got into the tan sedan. After that, I started seeing the car more. Not every night, but often. Sometimes it would park out by the road. Sometimes it would loop through the lot slowly and then leave. If other customers were around, it never stayed. One weekend, my boss asked if I could cover an extra shift, so I was there, alone, from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. He mentioned the front-facing camera by the pumps was down. Lightning strike, he said. They'd fix it in a few days. Around 3:15 that night, I was restocking chips in one of the back aisles when I heard the front door chime. I called out, "I'll be right there." No one answered. I walked out to the counter. There was no one in the store. The lot was empty, but the door had definitely beeped. I checked the door. It was closed, but when I tested it, it stuck for a second before opening. Something felt off in the way it latched. I went into the little office and pulled up the security camera from a minute earlier. The interior camera had a wide shot of the whole front area. I watched myself stacking chips in the back. Then the door opened a few inches. The chime sounded. The man from before, gray hoodie, cap. He slid inside and let the door close softly behind him. He didn't go to the counter. He moved down the aisle next to me, staying one aisle over, keeping the racks between us. Every time I shifted, he shifted. At one point, he was no more than 6 feet from me, one aisle away. If either of us had taken one step into the open, we would have seen each other. Then he paused and looked up straight at the camera. He stared at it for a moment. After that, he backed up, went to the door, and stepped outside. Before he walked away, he took something out of his pocket and pressed it into the gap where the door met the frame. Then he pulled the door shut behind him. I paused the footage and rewound that part. He had wedged a folded piece of cardboard into the latch. From the inside, it looked closed, but the lock wouldn't fully catch. I went back out to the door and checked. Sure enough, when I pushed on it from the outside, it gave a little. If someone pulled hard enough, it would pop right open, even with the lock turned. I pulled out the cardboard and threw it away. Then I locked the deadbolt and called the non-emergency police line. I told them there was a car with no plates because I'd also noticed that night the tan sedan had no rear license plate. And I told them about the door and the man trying to avoid being seen. They said they'd send someone when they could. We weren't exactly a priority call. While I waited, the lot was empty. No car, just the hum of the cooler and the buzz of the lights. 20 minutes later, a patrol car pulled in. The officer walked around, took my statement, and checked the back of the building. He found muddy footprints near the rear door, fresh ones. Someone had been standing on a cinder block, peering through the tiny wired glass window in the top of the door. He took a few pictures and told me, "If you see that car again, call right away." Then he left. The tan sedan didn't come back the rest of the night, or the next, or the next. A couple months later, my old manager texted me out of nowhere. "Remember that creeper in the tan car you told me about? Pretty sure he finally hit us, got us last night." He sent me a grainy still from the security footage. The same man in the gray hoodie, tan sedan behind him. This time, he wasn't hiding from the camera. He was prying the back door open with a crowbar at 4 in the morning. The station had closed early that night. The new overnight guy had called off. The manager had locked up and gone home. No one was inside. He broke in, went straight for the office, and tried to get into the safe. He worked on it for about 10 minutes, then left when he couldn't open it. He clearly had been in there before. He knew exactly where to go. He knew when no one would be around. I still think about the night I watched that footage of him moving down the aisle next to me, staying just out of sight, about the door with the fake latch. If I hadn't checked the camera or the lock, he could have walked back in any time, and I probably wouldn't have even heard the chime. Now, whenever I'm somewhere late and I see a car just sitting in a dark part of the lot, I don't brush it off, because someone like that doesn't just watch one place. If they get comfortable, they do it again, somewhere else.
If you've had anything strange happen to you late at night, in the woods, at home, or at work, feel free to share it in the comments. Some of the scariest stories are the ones that could happen to anyone on an ordinary day when you're sure you're safe.